from your perspective and where you sit within Aurora Public Schools, what does 21st century learning look like?
So as an ed tech coach and a teacher, I think it varies. I don't think they're necessarily...
Should it vary?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there is necessarily a specific look or answer to a 21st century learning. If you want, it is new education. It is different than what we're currently doing or have been doing.
Different how?
In the way of, you look at current education as the Industrial Revolution education.
Okay.
University education. It has not changed, right? Since man had the ability to write a scroll. It has not changed. They stood in front and delivered the message, and the people sat and got, God, you take anyone in history, drop them in a classroom, ask them where are they could probably identify it as
Some
a
people
classroom.
would say that Plato had a particular inquiry bent.
Right.
He asked lots of questions and sort of got people to discover things on their own. So there have been other threads of education.
But we could say it's one of the slowest moving entities, then.
Okay.
And I still think that is in general terms of today. Not necessarily in public education, but what drives public education is a lot of times the universities. So universities aren't changing what they're looking for, their requirements, or what they want to mold into a future learning. Public education is not going to change. Because we supply the college route, right? I mean, essentially that's where our kids are going. Are they college and career ready? Well, who drives that are the universities, right? So I think what does 21st century look like? I think it's revolutionary. It's changing. It's not focusing on necessarily the hard skills, but soft skills to go along with it. And I think like I said, I think it varies. I still want my doctors and surgeons to be complete book nerds. I want them. I mean, throwing out a stereotype, socially inept. I want them. I want them to know their craft.
Why?
Because they should have the hard knowledge of that subject and more. So if they're working on my brain, I want them to know everything there is. I want to know, want them to know every single part of my brain, what it does and all that. I want them to be a nerd, right? But that doesn't mean that's the case that you have to be successful in the real world. We don't have to make every student go through that path to be successful in the real world. Look at Google. Would they want someone to be maybe a nerd, or do they want someone that works well in teams, that's creative, that has that open mindset to think outside of the box, right? So they might want someone with more, say, soft skills. Working.
What's a soft skill?
Collaborating with, works well with others, plays well with others, something that you're not necessarily going to be able to give them an A to test all of their knowledge. Like, oh, you answered 90 out of 100 of these questions, right? We're going to give you an A. No, it's the street skills. I don't know, street smarts, if you would, or something like that. They may want someone to understand that to develop new projects, right? Or even, let's say, think of the post-industrial revolutions. We needed to send people to universities that could master these skills. That's what you needed to be successful in the world to do, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're into the new world of internet technology. Those skills might not apply. The same skills might not apply to what we're doing today. And so I think that's where 21st century learning comes into play.
So 21st century learning to you is a little bit more about skills that previously have gone unidentified or are different from what traditionally would have defined success in school.
Right. Exactly.
Do you think that there is a difference between 21st century learning and 21st century skills?
That's a good question. I posted something like that on the board downstairs. We have those boards. I can't remember the question exactly, but is it easier for a new age student to learn than an old age student, or an older student, a millennial child versus a World War II vet or something like that? And the responses I got back were interesting. It's like, no, they should both be able to learn the same, right? Because we still have that ability to learn. But do the skills, are our brains different? Is the younger generation's brain different in the way it learns than ours? I don't know. And that's a good question. It makes you think. So is it different learning and teaching? Yes. As a teacher, I might have to look away from the traditional textbook of white paper, black text. What benefits are younger youth today? They prefer black, a dark background with some sort of neon text on it. So is it different? Yes, learning is different than teaching.
And this is like the smallest of examples.
Right, the smallest examples, like reading patterns. How do me and you read? We read from left to right, top to bottom. How do our new children read? In a Z pattern. They scan the top, down the side, right? Because if they can't find it on a web page, where's everything on a web page? On the top banner or on the left side where all of the links are. That's how they read. So when they look at a textbook, what are they going to do? Same thing, and this has been, proven or studied. So yes, I think there is a difference between 21st learning and teaching, if that makes sense. So I need to adapt it, but how am I teaching? How do a lot of our teachers teach? The way that they were taught. And so, I think it's very important, especially with like ed tech and the jobs that we do. As a teacher, you have to be a lifelong learner as well.
So would you say that 21st century learning is much more about creating lifelong learners than it is about the actual learning happening in that particular classroom at that particular day?
That's a good question. I think it's both. I think it's creating the lifelong learner, but also making sure that learning is happening in that classroom that day.
What do you think we have to do differently as folks who support teachers and leaders in order to make sure that 21st century learning shows up and that we can actually observe it and see it in our classrooms?
And that's a $1 million question right there. And that's what I've thought about with being an ed tech coach. How do you quantify or qualify the work that we do? How is it, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can't tie it back to a state standard. You can't say, oh, this classroom had a full set of Chromebooks versus this classroom didn't. They scored 10 points higher on this test and these guys didn't. You can't say that that was strictly because of technology. To me, technology is a tool. It's not the end all be all. The real drive is the teacher itself, good teaching practices. And technology is a tool that they can use to enhance that. Make sense? So I can't say whether or not this teacher could have been a really good teacher and this teacher could have been a really crappy teacher in the teaching methods and practices. That's the difference. Or it could be vice versa. This teacher without technology scored 20 points higher than this teacher. Why? Because of the teaching practices or the methods that they employed. So how do you quantify the use of technology in 21st century learning? I don't know. I mean, it's interesting.
So that's something you are still very much grappling.
I am still grappling with, and I think it would be a huge factor for APS to say to do a study, to see a study, to say, look at how much technology is impacting instruction, but how do you show that and how do you do that? I don't know. And that would be my question, and you can put that at the bottom.
Wait, say it again.
So what's your question at the end? What are your who is questions? How do you quantify the use of technology to drive student engagement and student achievement?
Okay. How do you quantify the use of technology to increase student engagement and achievement?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask this question, and not as a response necessarily,
no,
but let me ask this question. Do you believe that you can be an effective 21st century teacher without the use of technology?
Yes. Okay. Now I go back to your presentation that you gave in the interview.
Mm-hmm.
What is technology?
Yeah.
What does that mean to when you have your bag or that bag of the students? What are you considering technology? That cell phone? Just that cell phone, or are you talking, a full access Chromebook in front of you? I don't know. That question's hard. I think technology is all around us. It's how do you choose to use it as a teacher? I don't know.
So I think one of the things that's most intriguing to me about sort of those sticky points of, can you be effective without technology? Can you increase engagement and achievement without the use of these specific tools? And I think it maybe goes back to what we're preparing kids for, right? Are we preparing them for 21st century experiences that they are going to have within the workplace or within college and within their career? Or are we preparing them for something that they could be successful with here, but maybe not successful in those other spaces?
That's exactly. Yeah.
And so I wonder if the question then becomes, how is it that we can shift the expectation for ourselves and say, I need to be able to not only prepare them for what is, but what is to come.
Right.
And so if we are doing that, and this is sort of the last question that I'll ask, if we are preparing kids for what is to come,
right,
what does that look like in the classroom?